May Day, it's my pleasure to introduce John Witeck, who is a retired trade unionist, a member of the Hawai'i Workers Center sponsoring committee, and to many of us, just a very beloved and wonderful, active person in the Hawaii community. John?
Aloha to all the sisters and brothers from here and around the world. May Day is the ideal day to launch the Hawai'i Workers Center. My first connection with May Day was actually as a grade school student at a Catholic parish school. And May Day then we had a mass and we marched around the school in honor of Mary, the mother of Jesus. When I went home, I saw May Day was a day with soldiers and tanks and missiles paraded in front of the Kremlin in Moscow. And in Hawaii, May Day was designated as Lay Day. So finally, at some point, I learned that May Day was International Workers' Day, a day proclaimed all over the world to honor the heroic struggle of American workers for the 8-hour day. It was interesting to me that we didn't celebrate it much in this country or in Hawaii. The inspiration for establishing May 1 as International Workers' Day came from a rally of Chicago workers in Haymarket Square, Chicago, on May 4th, 1886. On that afternoon, thousands of workers demonstrated in the square in support of the 8-hour workday. Working conditions were miserable in those times, 10-hour workdays, 6 days a week, hazardous workplaces. And those terrible conditions prompted the strikers to rally and fight for the 8-hour day. As the number of demonstrators decreased during the day, the police decided to move in and disperse the crowd, and an unidentified person threw a bomb. The officers, I think 7 of them and several demonstrators ended up killed, and hundreds of labor leaders and supporters were later rounded up and prosecuted. 4 labor leaders and supporters were executed by hanging after a very unfair trial. Among the 4 included Methodist pastor Samuel Fielden, editor Albert Parsons, August Spies, and Adolph Fisher. To commemorate the struggle of the American Unionists, socialist and workers' unions around the world adopted May 1 as their International Labor Day. Since then, over 80 countries now celebrate that day as their Labor Day. In many countries, it's usually a holiday from work, including marches and often militant rallies. Today is the 130th anniversary of International Workers' Day, or May Day. This day commemorates the struggles and contributions of all working people around the world. It promotes international solidarity and a social order in which the workers run society and not corporations and capitalists. This is so different from what happens in this country. Because of the severe repression that workers face in many countries, May Day has become a time for rallying and raising the demands of workers against government repression and for decent wages. In the United States, the first Monday in September was proclaimed as Labor Day. It was made a federal holiday in 1894 as a day to honor the contributions to society of all working people. It was established as a less adversarial, less militant counterpoint to May Day celebrations around the world. Labor Day is usually celebrated with picnics and social events, but can also be a day of labor union rallies and activities. In the early 1970s in Hawaii, Cesar Chavez, the head of the Farm Workers Union, spoke at our Labor Day in Hawaii, organized by the AFL-CIO, and in support of the unions organizing in the Great Boycott. In the Philippines and in other countries like the Philippines, typically tens of thousands of workers demonstrate and rally. In the Philippines, these take place in many cities, and often a list of demands are placed upon the government in support of labor's agenda. But today in that country, in the Philippines, the government of President Duterte has unleashed a bloody campaign against farmers, workers, and their organizations, and has jailed hundreds of political prisoners during the COVID-19 threat. The May 1st Workers Movement, KMU, the largest and most militant labor center, is at the forefront of the workers' struggle and resistance against Duterte and all his anti-worker, anti-people policies and killings. Given this rich history, May 1 is a fitting time for us to launch the Hawai'i Workers Center. As we launch, we draw attention to the situation of so many workers in Hawaii and around the world, especially low-wage, unorganized, non-union, and jobless workers, and the immigrant workers who are also bearing the brunt of this global pandemic. An injury to one is an injury to all. The 8-hour workday in Hawaii and elsewhere has been eroded, and many workers have to work 2 or 3 jobs, even though one job should be enough. Even amidst the COVID-19 pandemic and our isolation, we must step up and do what we can to support unions and workers, and together fight for decent jobs, a living wage, paid sick leave, hazard pay, and health care for all. With unions, workers' centers, churches, and community organizations, we can and will work to build a new world, a more humane, a more equitable and just order, which respects workers and immigrants, safeguards the environment, and honors the contributions of all workers. Umua the Workers Center, forward. Aloha, mahalo.